G'day guys, and welcome to back to Unexplained Australia. I haven't done a video for quite some time, probably a couple of years actually. So today what I'm actually looking at, just doing a really quick video on paranormal investigation equipment. Now there is truckloads of equipment out there these days that's available for purchase from different suppliers and things like that, which is all very good and well. I'm not really having a go at anybody who manufactures this sort of equipment. They're just trying to make a little buck on the side like a lot of people. So I'm not really having a go at anybody in particular about this kind of thing. But one of the things that frustrates me a lot when I go out and I do investigations with other people or with groups and things like that is a lot of people, when they purchase and bring along this equipment to investigations, is they really don't understand how it works. Now, what's really important is to understand why you have the piece of equipment that you've got and why that you use it. So one of the mainstays of paranormal investigation at the moment is the EMF meter. EMF standing for electromagnetic field. Now, if you watch any of those ghost shows on TV, such as Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, the list goes on, Most Haunted, etc., you will see them wandering around with an EMF meter. Now, EMF meters are still, as far as I'm concerned, very not experimental, but the usefulness and what they prove is still very vague for me at this point. The only thing that they really prove, and I don't really want to upset anybody who believe in any of these pieces of equipment, which they believe gives them definitive proof of the paranormal. I'm not trying to upset anybody again, but try and understand what these pieces of equipment are for. So EMF meter, as I just said, stands for electromagnetic field. So what they pick up is electromagnetic fields. They don't pick up ghosts. Okay, where it comes into the field of paranormal investigation is that there's two theories here. And if you, as I said, if you're watching those shows, you've probably heard this before. What they say is that ghosts or spirits can somehow manipulate electromagnetic field energy or frequencies, or they are made up of that energy. Both of those theories are kind of okay because the universe that we live in is electromagnetic in nature anyway. So those aren't necessarily bad things. But when it comes to trying to gather information and present, for example, if you're presenting evidence to a client, EMF evidence is pretty flimsy as far as I'm concerned. I say to people a lot of the time on our tours, on our ghost tours, that if you're standing in the middle of a field, because we do bring along the K2s, which I'll pop up here somewhere, we bring along the K2s to the ghost tours and we get people to have a bit of a play with those. And what I say to them is that if you're standing out in the paddock in the middle of nowhere with no electricity around, no mobile phones on, things like that, things that are going to set off these pieces of equipment, then you could be onto something. Maybe out in the cemetery, out in the middle of nowhere, where there's no electricity nearby, or there's no... Sorry, I just bumped the microphone. Where there's no interference from human-made EMF sources, then you could be onto something. But I don't know. I mean, the first time I used a K2 meter in particular, we seem to be getting responses from this thing. But again, it's very open to interpretation. So my mainstays these days with paranormal investigation equipment, are very basic things. So they're things like cameras, still cameras, and video cameras, voice recorders, and just a digital EMF meter, just for shits and giggles, basically. And one of the things I think that's neglected a lot in people who go out and do investigations of people's homes and things like that, is they don't sit down and talk to the client enough. Now, I think that's one of the most important things. If you have a person who's a bit upset about what's going on, doesn't know what's going on, sometimes they are the best source of information that you'll get. Particularly, if they see a figure or they have an experience, ask them about their experiences and write them down. So I think that, for me personally, and gathering information like that, for me these days, is the best way to gather anecdotal evidence, however, but it is a form of evidence, and I think it's some of the best stuff you can get. You can wander around the dark with K2 meters and mel meters and all sorts of things, which really don't prove anything. So as I said, the things that I use the most are video cameras, like the one I'm using now. This one does have an IR function, or a night shot function. again, that's something where you kind of beg the question, why do we need to use IR or night shot with paranormal investigation? I think it's good to be able to see in the dark, but when it comes to witnesses, people who have actually seen ghosts or seen what they believe are ghosts, they usually see those with their normal to human eyes. So they don't need these, extra pieces of equipment which see in frequencies that the human eye can't see, when most people who have witnessed a ghost see it without any aid whatsoever. So I begged the question of and the same goes for UV type devices as well. You can get your IR and your UV. So if you don't know what that means, infrared and ultraviolet light illuminators which flood an area with that type of light in hope of capturing something a little bit more easily that perhaps the human the human eyes can't see. So as I said before, some of the equipment that I use the most are cameras, video cameras, maybe K2 meter, maybe digital meter, things like that, But when you are looking at pieces of equipment, make sure you understand them. Make sure you read the specifications. If you're buying a new microphone, such as something like this, which you probably wouldn't use in paranormal investigation, this is for use in a recording studio, but a very, very sensitive microphone. Try and understand frequency response. What does that mean? Well, frequency response is measured in a thing called hertz. So these are cycles per second. And the human ear at its very best can only hear between 40 hertz and 40,000 hertz. Actually, incorrect. The human ear can only hear between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. So I buggered that up. Some animals most dogs can hear up to 40,000 hertz, and some animals can hear below that as well. So when you're picking a microphone, you obviously want to pick a microphone that the human ear has the ability to hear. Like when you're putting it back on your software, your audio software, you want to be able to then hear that with your ears, if you know what I mean. You can pitch things up and down to maybe find some ultrasounds that are there, and infrasounds that may be there. But realistically, when people hear, again, use the human eyes and ears as your first example. Most people hear phantom sounds and what they interpret as paranormal sounds with their own human ears. So really quickly, just to finish off, I'm trying to make it very short because I tend to babble, but really try and understand your pieces of equipment, understand what they're used for, understand why you're using it, and certainly learn how to use it correctly in the first place, opposed to going out in the field or going to a client's home and buggering around with your new video camera, for example. Understand your equipment. Ask if you're buying it from a supplier. Ask them, how does this work? What's it supposed to pick up? What are we actually looking for here? And are these things actually important in terms of paranormal investigation anyway? You've got things like, detectors that detect static electricity changes and things like that. Ask yourself whether this is relevant. Is this something that you need to be, are these things? One of the things, and also just before I finish up, one of the things that I used to find in the early days in paranormal investigation was when I used to walk around with so many gadgets, one in this pocket and that pocket and my bag and everything, and it just became a pain in the ass. So what I started doing is just using very simple 2 or 3 pieces of equipment at a time, because I found that they were distractions. They were actually distracting me from the environment that I was in, where you may hear or see something, instead of looking out to the real world and going, oh my God, I saw a figure over there behind the gravestone, for example. You may have missed it because you had your face in, an EMF meter or something like that. I'm going to try and put up a little bit more content, probably try and about one a week. Maybe just little chats like something like this. But thank you very much for listening. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a like down there. Leave us a comment. I'm quite happy to debate what people think about this kind of stuff, because we need debate in the paranormal scene. And hit the little notification bell down there by the side. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.